all today. You are here with Wisconsin Women in Conservation. Probably most of you have attended a WiWiC event before, but if you haven't, I'm just going to run through quickly who we are. We are a statewide organization. We started off as a collaborative of 4 organizations that were funded by NRCS, and we worked all across the state bringing in-person events. We do lots and lots and lots of field days. We do these webinars, we do happy hours, and you can see that we have lots of great in-person events coming up. We've got one in Clinton, so Southeast Wisconsin. Then we've got one, I would say Norwalk is more west central, north, not really northwest. We've got another conservation webinar, summer camp webinar coming up. And then we have another more South Central Wisconsin Prairie event. This is just July and August that I have up here more. If you want to use the QR code, you can see all of our events, and we have more fall events coming. So we really enjoy getting out on each other's farms. You can see here, we've been on lots of prairies this year. The reason prairie is such a theme for us is because that's what we heard last year from you at events, is that you wanted to learn more about integrating some pollinator habitat onto your properties, farms, and even your urban yards. So we're doing a lot of that. We do events out in the countryside. You'll find us on lots of farms, but you'll also find us in urban gardens, urban settings. And we just love seeing what you all are growing. Often we hear people say, I didn't see that on the listserv. And it seems that they might think that the newsletter is the listserv. We have 2 different things. We send out newsletters, and if you have ever come to an event, you will get our newsletter after that. But the listserv is something you have to ask to join. And you do that by just sending an email to this address and saying, let me join the listserv. And that's just informal people asking questions. There's lots of practitioners on there, also lots of professionals. So it's a great way to share your events, ask your questions, give advice. And we'd love to have you on there too. We are no longer funded by the federal government. Some of you may already know that our contract, the funding was unilaterally terminated. And so we are currently being funded by Michael Fields Agricultural Institute. You can check out what Michael Fields does, but basically it's an organization that's been helping farmers who want to practice regenerative agriculture since 1984. So we work in all kinds of places, but the focus of everything is saving soil. And these webinars are co-led and sponsored by Renewing the Countryside. Renewing the Countryside was one of our original partners, and they have continued to partner with us for events and over there in Western Wisconsin, and also for these webinars. So thank you so much. Renewing the Countryside is all about thriving, vibrant farms and countrysides and urban spaces too. Lots of local food initiatives. The Women's Fund of Greater La Crosse is sponsoring an event for us that's coming up. Really wonderful sponsorship there. And finally, most of our funding is coming from you all these days. So if you have already chipped in to keep our WiWiC Hive alive, thank you. If you still want to donate, we would love that. You can scan the QR code and that'll tell you how to donate by check or let you donate online. And we love you and thank you so much. I'm not going to talk a lot about what's coming next for WiWiC, but I will say we have always been highly focused on research and evaluation. And you've met Rebecca, part of our team. She's evaluated every single one of our events. And even before we birthed WiWiC, research that Rebecca had done with Gene Eels is what informed our model, the learning circle, the way we structure things. And we're going to lean into that. And very soon, you're going to be seeing some participatory action research surveys coming your way. This is something that Michael Fields has been doing for some time, led by Mrill Ingram, who's our participatory action research scientist. And we are going to learn how to make change together through evaluation, feedback, and crafting basically our approach for the future. So we're going to be asking you what you care about. You can actually, in the chat right now, if you have some ideas, what do you need from WiWiC now? What do you need right now in terms of taking care of land? And what would you like to see in the next decade out of a group like this? We'd love to hear from you. We're going to send you lots of ways to participate in that soon. And it's just been such a delight making WiWiC with you over the past 5 years.
Thank you so much, Chris. I'm really excited to see what continues to evolve with WiWiC, and I hope all of you take an opportunity to help us co-create that by sharing your ideas in the chat or emailing Chris afterwards with things you're interested in knowing more about. I am going to bring on our speakers who I've known Julie for a long time. She, in fact, was one of the first people I met when I started college at UW-Stevens Point back, I won't tell you how many years ago, but I'm grateful that our paths continue to cross in the area of conservation. And I'm really excited to have Julie Peterson with Pheasants Forever. She's a wildlife biologist and is coordinating the USDA Permanent Easements project in the Great Lakes Restoration Initiative. And most of her work is done in Northeast Wisconsin, helping landowners with these easements to plant, establish, and manage prairie and pollinator habitat. She's been with the organization for over 17 years and has a wealth of knowledge and so much enthusiasm. You're going to leave with a lot of energy and excitement to go and do great work on lands that you care for. Her and Debbie have been working together over the years. And when I first asked Julie about coming on for this webinar and asked her if there's a landowner that comes to mind that might be a good fit to share their experience, Debbie was the first person she thought of. Debbie has been advocating for prairies and getting women involved long before WiWiC even existed. She about 17 years ago, her and her husband started their first prairie garden on their property, about an acre in size on their 45 acres in Outagamie County. And she quickly realized that the growing passion for native plants was not only good for the wildlife, but also really good for her. And a conversation piece often between her and her friend Anne. Over the years, Debbie enrolled more land into the CREP program and the CRP program, and eventually attended some different meetings and took her friend Anne with and introduced her to other natural resource staff that could help with plans. And now Anne too has a prairie on her land, and they have hosted some gatherings to bring people to see these spots. So what an inspiration, and I'm really excited to hear from both of these wonderful individuals today. So with that, I will turn it over to the two of you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, we're really excited to be here. I'm really excited to do it with Debbie. She's one of the but one of the very first landowners that
Julie, I don't know if this is just me, but you're a little far away. Maybe if you could get closer to your speaker, that would be helpful. Thank you.
How about now?
Turn up the volume perhaps as well. It sounded great prior to.
How about now? Still not let.
No. Is there anything that changed, like when did you turn any volume down or anything perhaps while we were waiting?
How about now?
Perfect.
Can you hear me now? Oh, maybe I didn't unmute. I think we figured it out. Yep. Oh, there we go. All right. Well, how about everyone can hear now? And so Debbie was one of the first landowners that I worked with, and I was super excited to bring her on to make this more of a share. So we'll go over a lot of information, but then she'll share about her experiences and her knowledge. And not only is she very connected to her prairie and pollinator habitat in her land, but she also just really is a great model for this network and has always been part of this network and helped with bringing women's programming to Northeast Wisconsin. Probably that was 2015, 2014 when, you know, we had those first meetings and whatnot and brought Ann there. So I just really appreciate all of her efforts and some of her pollinator tours too that she's done for landowners. So, and right behind us is stiff goldenrod and a butterfly from her prairie. So let's get going. Let's see if I can share my screen now. Okay, and then
I think you'll need to try something else. That does, it's
oh,
not-
that is
Your
a
slideshow. Did you see that?
yeah, I did slideshow. Okay.
Some slideshow.
Yep, and then we need to go. We're still working on it here.
These are, you have to love.
There we go. How about this? Oh, and then screen 2.
Yeah.
Wait for it.
Perfect.
We good?
Yes.
All right. No, is it going to? Man, there we go. So, you know, when we start talking about how do we care for our prairie once it's planted, let's just go back and talk a couple pieces about some factors that are important in establishment and planting, in case you haven't planted a prairie yet. So factors that are important are soil type. What soil type do you have? You know, what seed mix are you going to put on your field or your area that you're thinking of? Is it a wet soil? Is it a dry soil? Do these seeds like, you know, wet soils or dry soils? What are your goals? What goals do you have for your property? You know, is this going to be a pollinator planting? A lot of us love that because it's, you know, something that blooms from April to October is really good for pollinators and getting, you know, a lot of blooms out there. But sometimes, you know, folks want to have more of that native, natural prairie with more grasses for more nesting habitat and whatnot. So goals are really important too. Site prep. You can never do enough site prep. You know, if you're planting into a cornfield, you know, you don't have to do as much typically. But if you're planting into a hay field or a field of grass that's been fallow for a while, you have to do a lot of site prep. Seed depth is another thing. Once you plant your prairie, when you throw out those seeds or use a drill or whatnot, you can't plant it too deep or else those seeds won't come. And then maintenance mowings are very important too in the establishment of your prairie. So those are just some factors, you know, that you've probably, if you've planted a prairie, you've already probably done and considered. But many times, you know, when people are really struggling with getting that established, we look back at some of these things and sometimes we can find some hints as to why maybe it didn't go so well. Again, you know, tillage when you're prepping is important to make sure that you do as little as possible because tilling up that soil really, you know, brings up a lot of weed species. So a lot of times with prairies, we have folks, we recommend no-till drills, special no-till drills, and maybe you've used one or, you know, hired someone to bring one out or whatnot. But if you do use not a no-till drill, but if you do, you know, do use tillage, you know, a little herbicide on some of that new species of weeds that are flashing up is a good good idea. Herbicide use. I don't like herbicides. However, I'll probably talk a bit about them because they are a great tool to help us manage and establish our prairies. And I really believe that they're important. The rate, timing, and amount of herbicide that you use is critical. And you don't really need too much if you get the timing right. There are ways, if you're organic, there are definitely other methods to, use to get rid of weeds, to take care of weeds, or, to help get rid of trees or whatnot in your prairies too. These invasive plant management fact sheets from UW Extension are really good, and I think they'll be putting them in the chat. And so, knowing the weeds too that you have, or the plant that you're trying to get rid of, is always really important to know that cycle, and then to use multiple ways to get rid of it. And these sheets point to that. And Deb is going to talk a little bit too about her experience with weeds and herbiciding.
Yeah, I've got to say that learning about weeds is the least fun part of maintaining and establishing and maintaining prairies. But it's very necessary. So of course, it's so much fun to learn about all the different plants and the, flowering plants that you want to plant, the pollinating plants, but the weeds will be there. So you may as well learn about them and the best ways to manage them. And I learned like burdock. I had no idea about the life cycle of burdock. And if it's a biennial, a perennial, or an annual, I mean, you really need to know the life cycle, or you might just be wasting your time, not timing it right as far as trying to mow the weeds or to use herbicide. Or I know Julie is talking about no-till, but I have to say I did dig up a lot of weeds too, and they don't recommend that because you're bringing soil to the surface. But when you have a bull thistle the size of a Christmas tree, it's very gratifying to dig that thing up and get it out of there. So learning a lot about weeds is very important, and the type of herbicide. Some will not kill grasses. And if you've had a lot of grasses that you planted, you don't want to kill those. So you can find herbicides like triclopyr that will not kill grasses, versus glyphosate, which would kill anything that it comes in contact with. So there's a big learning curve for me as far as weeding, managing weeds, learning what they are, learning their life cycle.
And using herbicides, to do it. So in those first 3 years, mowing too, for establishment is really critical. And why you're mowing in the first 3 years is really to, let sunlight to the soil surface. And then, also to clip those annual weed seeds. Now here's a, mowing height, and, you don't want to mow too short, but, you want, just mow it in the first 3 years.
Mow it before they go to seed, because if they've already gone to seed, you're just going to be planting those seeds.
Exactly.
You're going to be distributing them.
Yeah. And so I tell landowners, after they've planted, check out your planting around Memorial Day, 4th of July, and Labor Day. We get a lot of things going in our lives, and we're like, oh yeah, we're supposed to be doing some mowing management in those first 3 years. It helps to kind of say, did I check it yet this month? That first year, I feel, is very critical for mowing. Second year, not as critical. Annual weeds may pop up right away, and giving them a quick cut in, the beginning of the spring is a good idea. But then, if any of you have worked with USDA programs, we talk all the time about that nesting season. And, those first 3 years are kind of critical to, watch your prairie, do your maintenance mowings, and maybe even a little herbicide if you get, certain problems, weeds too, out there. But in those first 3 years, you can, mow and do herbiciding in the nesting season. But then after, the USDA recommends that you stay away from that nesting season because birds like to nest in those prairie fields and the pollinator fields. And so that's one thing that, me and Debbie have talked a fair bit about, the primary nesting season, and how sometimes folks think, oh, I can't do anything because it's the primary nesting season. But in the first 3 years, it's pretty critical. So now we're just going to kind of go over prairies and what they look like kind of each year. So you planted already, and here's establishment one. The first year, I kind of talked about it. Those both of these were planted, and you're like, oh, they look kind of ugly, but the roots are working on growing down this year. So you really want to get that sunlight to the soil surface, and you want to clip those weeds here to the right. You can see some horsetail, I think, mare's tail is what they call it, I think. Want to keep those clipped. So we talked about that a little bit. This mouse. Okay, and then here's first year again. And these are species you kind of see in the first year. There's some black-eyed Susans out there in the left and right. Most folks know what those are. Those are really good species to have in your mix because then you know that you've spread your seed throughout the whole field. And then another species you can see there is the Canada wild rye as well. But yep, mow. Even though you want the flowers to look so pretty, it's a good idea to mow in those first 3 years. And then here is pictures of landowners' prairies at the beginning, because we get this all the time too. I don't see anything. I don't see those flowers. Nothing's coming. It's bare ground. It looks ugly. And then we walk out there with them and help to ID some of these plants. So the first year the roots grow down, the second year the plants are kind of creeping, and you'll see some of these kind of first photos there. So Debbie, do you want to go ahead and help us ID these?
Remember, you said that was the
partridge
pea,
right? Yep. And this is the one that
Black-eyed Susan.
Yep.
I don't know.
This one is a mint family and it has a purple, flower. This is the bergamot.
Oh.
Very medicinal plant for the Oneida Nation, and teas, and many other things they use this for. And then this one is that hoary vervain. How about this one?
Oh, the gray coneflower?
Mm-hmm. Yep,
Gray-headed?
coneflower. Mm-hmm. And then this is the one we always plant for monarchs, the milkweed. And then here's another early biennial too that comes usually right away. This is that evening primrose. And then, we talked about this one the other day, and I was like, oh, I think that's a prairie duck, a silphium or whatever. And then I was like, oh, that looks like the leathery leaves of the stiff goldenrod. Before, we showed you that picture of the yellow goldenrod with the monarch. This is the stiff goldenrod right at the base. So
that big leaf does look like the prairie duck.
it
though.
does.
The
It
smaller
does.
leaves look like the goldenrod.
Yeah. I think it's just zoomed in, maybe.
Well, and maybe it just had a big leaf.
And that
Sometimes that happens.
Yep. Okay, so here's establishment 2, year 2, looking really pretty again. And again, we give guidelines to folks, but really it's case by case, and not every weed is going to show up on properties. You might have a situation like this where it's looking pretty good the first year, or the second year, and you might not, need to mow as often, the second year. Is sunlight getting to the soil surface is the question I ask. And, are there, weeds that we need to cut out like the first year? And if not, then you don't have to mow as much. And then this is after a mowing, and here's a nice bergamot, species there too. Okay. And then the third year, I have this happen all the time. You know, people will be like, there's no flowers, it's all grass. I hardly have flowers. Well, this species here is Canada wild rye. And what's nice about Canada wild rye, it's a companion crop that you can plant with your prairie. Sometimes people plant oats too. And companion crops, they come up right away, kind of when black-eyed Susans come up too. And they kind of let you know that, yep, I planted and scattered my seeds all around because I'm seeing, you know, oats all around and black-eyed Susans and Canada wild rye. But over time, like oats will go away right away, but Canada wild rye will kind of be intense for a while. And then it'll go away, and big blue stem and other species of, you know, flowers and stuff that you plant will come in its place. And why it's kind of important to have a, you know, companion crop is because it helps with erosion if you're planting on steep soils. And it just helps with that competition too. So it's good, even though you see a lot of it and you think that's all you have. And now we're into year 5 of establishment. And, you know, yeah, these two are looking great. You probably recognize this one.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to talk about it a little bit?
I think that's actually the 1 acre one that we
Yeah.
started with, which should be like 19 years ago now. But yeah, we just mixed some sand and seeds, my husband and I, and just kind of threw it over. He had been, I think he had round up that field, and then he was mowing it like for all summer long. And then in the fall, we scattered the seed, and he actually got that seed mix from Prairie Nursery. And we didn't have any prairies. And in fact, I just thought, oh, this is just going to be a big failure because, you know, he's terrible at weeding and he has no patience and he doesn't even, you know, learn about the flowers and the weeds. And I thought, oh, this is just, you know, well, you know, we'll just let him do this just to, you know, get his way and try something out. Well, I ended up, of course, taking care of it because he wasn't. And that's where I really learned a lot. And then when I learned a lot, I found out about the USDA programs and the CRP Conservation Reserve Program, and decided the other farmland that we had that was just being used by a farmer and wasn't doing that great. And we had the highly erodible land. And so it was eligible for the program. And so got into that and learned that that was actually would help me fulfill my goals, plus provide the technical assistance and education that I really needed to be able to start such a type of crop and grow it and maintain it. So that was in 2012. I did about 9 acres. And then 3 years later, I'd found out about the pollinator habitat and added another close to 7 acres into that. So anyway, it's his fault that I got started in all this, but I'm glad I did. And so yeah, he kind of dropped out. He does vegetable gardening.
Thanks. Very cool. So, you know, really we say about 5 years, 3 to 5 years is about when it should be established and you should be seeing stuff. But it's not like you just plant it and leave it. You have to manage it. So not only did we work hard when we planted it to make sure that it was establishing and whatnot, but we kind of have to watch it as it's established too. But we don't have to do as much work necessarily. It depends who visits our prairies for weeds or trees or whatnot. And really management, man, sorry folks, there we go. Management is key to keeping a very vibrant and resilient prairie. They're resilient, but they really need that management. You want to talk a little bit about who this is?
Yeah, that's my dog, Emma, who was my partner when and still is, when I do some of my weeding. And a couple years ago, I really had a lot of sweet white, yellow, and white clover in my pollinator habitat, which I hadn't had that much in my other one. And they're right next to each other. So it's kind of interesting how some things grow even in fields right next to each other, not the other one. But that was so thick in there, as well as curly dock in there. So anyway, I was pulling it and cutting it depending on some stuff pulled. If it would pull, I'd pull it, but if it wouldn't pull, I'd cut it. And got the white, that's all sweet white clover in the back of the gator there. And so I was collecting that, and I mean, that looks full, but I probably had about 5 loads like that.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I was telling Julie the other day, it's like, oh, but now it's all gone. And sure enough, I found some more, but this time I used herbicide because the mosquitoes were bad and it was really hot. And also it was like spread across a little bit of an area, not huge area, but like maybe 5 feet by 10. Whereas sometimes there are individual ones you can just dig out or pull out or cut. So it's back. But the other thing that interesting about the sweet white clover and yellow clover is if you have a fire, it ends up stimulating the seeds in the soil. So like the year after the fire, and then it's biennial. So it takes 2 years to actually get big enough that we really notice it because it's blooming. So it's like, oh, you kind of forget about it. Like, oh, I had my fire and oh, I took care of the sweet clover when I established it. It came back. But I really think now that I'm down to just, that one, and, it's always, birds can spread seed and stuff. You might have some, but the initial, I think I got rid of most of it now.
Very nice. And I've noticed just driving around, sweet clover around me is on the rise this year. It's everywhere in a lot of places. So it must be just right for sweet clover this year. So yeah, it's a hard one because it is biennial, and it, it takes multiple management tools to kind of keep it at bay. But the biggest management tool that I feel works well for prairies is fire. And, years back when prairies established, and, a lot of times we think of prairies, that big, beautiful open prairie in the West. And, back historically, prairies needed disturbance in order to be, stimulated and keep vibrant and whatnot. And, there was bison and fires, and those two, tools really, that were happening to these prairies were helping to keep, those very vibrant and those prairies, thriving. Burning is very critical to really, if you can burn your prairie, that will have the best help in keeping, it going. Me and Debbie were talking a little bit about thatch layer. What is thatch layer? Well, the thatch layer is when you kind of know you need to burn a prairie. If you have a really thick grass layer, we call it the thatch layer. And I'm thinking, it's usually in year 5. And if you have a lot of thatch or dead, grass and stuff on the ground, that's a good time to burn a prairie. And then it removes that thatch and it lets little pheasant chicks and other birds run around underneath and be really protected. So that keeping, a thatch, yep. Keeping in mind or looking at your thatch layer will help you, to decide if you need to do.
One thing I'll say is it does take a while for it to get the prairie to grow thick enough to have thatch, because I tried having a fire, I think I have only 2 years after, thinking like, oh, well, earlier the better. And it didn't burn good at all.
Right.
I didn't have enough thatch.
Yeah. And sometimes I find in those really flower dominated plantings, it takes even longer. Whereas if you have some of those nice, robust native grasses with it, then it, you could burn it earlier because you have more thatch quicker. So you kind of have, you kind of need to watch that too. Now, after you burn, you might see species you hadn't seen before or more flowers and things like that. But if you have an older prairie and you're like, I want a lot more blooms than I have and want to do a little interseeding, you can do that after you burn. You can throw, more species in via broadcasting or even a little no-till drill over it. And then you kind of need to start that cycle of mowing again to, again, let that sunlight get to the soil surface and give it, some energy to grow and add more diversity. So burning is critical, and everyone's probably saying, burning? That doesn't sound very easy. And it's not. But it is a controlled fire is very manageable. And I think it's key to really, getting your prairies and your pollinator plantings to really keep being vibrant and whatnot. So here's just some dates, like, what is your goal? Do I want more forbs? These are dates I should be burning in. And do I have cool season grasses in there? I want my cool season grasses to be green before I light a match.
Why do you have the asterisk on the April 1st through the April 15th?
I'm not sure why I have an asterisk on that.
Time there?
Yeah, I think that is the kind of the time that our programs typically have folks that, burn during that time. Again, the nesting season, if you're in a program, they like to get you to, burn when conditions are right, but also before that primary nesting season again.
Or after?
Before or way after.
Yeah.
Yep. And that's the same with spot mowing on your, prairies too. Like wait till, August 1st to do more of that spot mowing. And these are established prairies, not right at the beginning, but established again. So, this thing. So you might say, how do I get started? How do I get started in burning? And, things to consider is if you want to burn your prairie, start a year or two before planning for it. Hiring a contractor is a good idea, especially if you have a large piece. If you have a smaller piece and you can go around it with a hose, or there's green grass all around it, or there's, very manageable breaks around your prairie, you might be able to do it yourself. But I definitely think, hiring a contractor is important. Pheasants Forever is there to help you out. There's crews around the state that will help. Prescribed Fire Council website has a list of contractors. It's a really good website to help you plan for a burn. Permits, check with your town too, not only state, but town, for that, to make sure you have a permit before you burn. And, mowing your breaks, like the fall before you burn. A lot of times folks, the window for burning is spring. So making sure that your breaks around your unit are mowed before that. And then helping to complete if you're doing it yourself, completing your burn plan, in the winter time is good. So I go into all these weeds about burning, but really, the Pheasants Forever has a number of biologists in the state to really help you, through all these steps, really. And all you got to do is call us up, and we'll work with you case by case. And sometimes that's nice, just to have someone who will walk through the stage you're at. And with burning, because I know you've done how many burns on your property?
Well, with the two different ones, I don't know, 4 maybe?
4. Yeah. Yeah. And did you do it yourself, or did you hire?
Hired. Yeah. It just seemed too overwhelming to me, and probably the fear of it getting out of control. And we have, neighbors all around that would maybe be concerned, and then I didn't have to do anything about getting the permits. I mean, they took care of everything. So that was just really nice and a good feeling to just kind of be able to watch other people do it. My husband and I, a couple of years ago, just tried to burn grass along a fence line, and it got out of control, and it was heading toward our woods. And that was so scary. I mean, that stress, I don't want to ever deal with that. So
Sure.
yeah.
Yeah. And, some landowners are like, I got this. And then they another resource that I think is in the chat is a burn plan. And they looked at the burn plan, and they went through step by step, all the factors and equipment and all this stuff needed for, planning for a burn. Because once you plan for a burn through that burn plan, you got everything. It really steps you through, preparing for it. But once you do that, sometimes people are like, I'm not burning it on my own. I'm going to hire someone. Or they, you know, they'll not help them, but they'll be very involved. So then the next time they can do it on their own,
Mhm.
you know, or they say, I can't really afford that contractor, but maybe the volunteer fire department will help me out. And I've had a number of landowners go to volunteer fire departments and they'll help them, you know, do the burn for a donation as a training for them. So that's another way to where
And people
where to
can
look.
take training too. They offer
Yes.
a lot for landowners.
Mhm.
as far
There's
as
a
I'm
lot.
aware.
Yep. I just wanted to talk really briefly about woody invasion. A lot of times we burn our prairies and you know, those woody stump sprouting species still come back up. And so what do? We had a really nice burn, but I'm still seeing, you know, woody plants, and that happens. And you know, cutting and spraying or just spraying the woody is another thing you need to do in coordination with burning. So. And that helps to, you know, again, multiple management tools on your species you don't want.
And if I can interject, that's one
Yes.
of the things you can't control, of course, is your neighbors and what they grow. And one of my neighbors has a mulberry tree and
Mhm.
loves the mulberries for his kids. Well, I have mulberries all over my pollinator, and it's just gonna be a continuous problem. So, you know, yes, the fires help that. And now the other day I ended up spraying a lot of as many as I could find, spraying them because I just, you know, I know too that from the fires they still come back up. And I've tried cutting them off and they still come back up.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Hopefully this will work. But you know, and the mulberry trees, a lot of the herbicides do not kill them. So, and the other neighbor
That
has asked.
triclopyr though helps with woody. So that's
Yeah,
a good
that
one
didn't do
to.
the mulberry,
did it.
but the milestone
Oh,
has.
helps
Yep,
it.
yep.
Okay.
So hopefully it killed. I had done 2 last fall to see how they'll do. One died and didn't come back, and one did. So there you go.
There you go.
Yeah.
And that happens too. Sometimes, you know, you think you got them, but you didn't. But sending a fire through, you know, with the right conditions and timing of when you're doing it, I always say like what you want to get rid of. If it's green when you're burning. So like when in the early spring, sometimes we burn it off too soon and there isn't green in the cool season grass or there isn't green in the woody. And we don't really hurt those then. We
But
want
then if
that
it's too
green.
green, the fire. Good.
It's a smokier fire. Yes. And those are kind of the trade-offs. Yep. So here, you know, I just was talking about cool season grass too, and I just wanted to show this. So we just think about, you know, that cool season hay grass, it's really growing in those cool seasons. So that timing is critical that we hit it then. If we go down and look at our, you know, native grasses, they're not really cranking until right now, July, right? There's been some more research and more folks are actually, you know, burning with greener fields too and seeing some good success with that. But what's critical about burning is not only, you know, the timing of the species out there, but do you have dry conditions? Do you have the right wind speed? You know, all those other factors. So timing is challenging at times. Okay, so here's some more, you know, just kind of a summary of some management things, you know, mowing, haying. We didn't talk too much about grazing, but if you have animals, you know, grazing, you know, can be appropriate for helping to, you know, manage prairies. Burning every 3 to 5 years is good. And then spot treatment and herbiciding. So we had some questions here.
Yeah. There was a lot of great questions popping up in the chat, and I saw a lot
Okay.
of people sharing resources with one another, which I think is just a great example of the power of this network and community of people out there caring for the land. One of the questions there was some questions about, do you have any experience or suggestions on managing ragweed or thistles?
Boy, the giant ragweed, it's a annual, I believe.
I think so
And
too.
it's real easy to pull. So that was really thick on the edge of my pollinator, from the farmer's land, adjoining it. And I just pulled it and just kept, before it went to seed, watched when it was gonna go to seed, pulled it before. And then the thistle, did they say Canada thistle?
I don't think they said which thistle, but that's a good
Oh.
point. Is it Canada or is it a musk thistle?
Yeah, well, the
Or
bull,
both.
yeah, the bull thistles you can also kind of dig and pull out, depending on how many you have, but they're so big. But the Canada thistle is just an eternal pain in my butt. And I'm dealing with them now, and because they can just spread, and, they monoculture. And now I'm trying herbicide. I've done the mowing. I've tried mowing different times, spot mowing in those areas, but they come back. So in a couple areas, they're really thick and they're hard to get rid of. But, again, you just keep at it.
When you, there is somebody who asked, when you do your mowing, Debbie, what kind of equipment, describe what you're using to do that mowing? Is it a tractor or a large lawnmower, or?
I'm laughing because nobody wants to do this, believe me. But I just use our lawnmower, our riding lawnmower, because that's all we have. We don't have a tractor. We don't have big equipment. And so it took forever because it's just this little lawnmower. And I pulled a brush cutter behind it, though. I got a brush cutter. So I was pulling that behind it, but still I'm with this little tractor. So it really took forever. I mean, days. So I just found a way to enjoy it. I loved watching the swallows come and get the bugs. And I loved the smell of the anise hyssop. So just trying to find little things I enjoy and thinking, I'm just going to be outside all day and enjoy nature, so you try to get a better mindset, like, oh, this is fun. But, and knowing that, again, knowing that it's only the first couple of years. So the first year was 3 times, and it's like, oh, but next year I only have to do it 1 time, which I did only do it one time. And I don't even know if I did it at all the 3rd year. I might have once, but no, like the 1 time's like a luxury.
Woo.
Yeah.
Well, that's what a great attitude to bring to it. And I also think that helps share too that you don't have to have all the big equipment to be able to take on a project like that. Don't let that be the thing that stands in your way. So I think that's a great example of that.
You just divide it into time. Like, okay, this is going to probably take me 4 days, and it doesn't mean all day long, but yeah, it's eventually it'll get done.
And I saw a few times in the chat people talking about a tool called the parsnip predator, and I'm curious, do you happen to have one? It's a tool that's people often use for wild parsnip, but it also can be used to dig up some of those species with a bigger taproot to kind of sever the root slightly below the ground. And so that might be an option to try for a suggestion in here for the Canada thistle.
Well, maybe, but the Canada thistle has such a network that they connect to each other. I mean, that just goes, so you think you're getting the whole root, but you really aren't. And they're not one that if you just slice it off, that it won't come back. But burdock is one that I could see that being really good at with the big taproot. And
The bull or
bull thistle, that's what I was going to say, bull thistle. Yeah, I only had found one wild parsnip in my field many years ago, and luckily I realized what it was because I was just going to pull it and dig it like other stuff, and then it's like, oh my gosh, I went back to the house and got fully dressed and everything in long sleeves, and then kept an eye. But that I actually just did dig up with a shovel. But again, you put gloves, shirt, covering everything, and I didn't have a lot, but I've read a lot and heard a lot about the parsnip predator and think it sounds great, but I just never got to the point where, because I'm I guess I've been using my long, kind of, those shovels with a real long, narrow blade.
Mhm.
I've been just doing that for so long that, and,
That
and I'm, and there are fewer and fewer, luckily, which is
Oh,
nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. We, for anybody who doesn't know, just a quick note on wild parsnip. If you're not familiar with the plant, it's a great one to familiarize yourself with because it is along a lot of the roadsides right now in Wisconsin, unfortunately, and probably other upper Midwest states. Has a bright yellow flower, and if you get the oil on your skin, it does photoreact with the sun, and so you can end up with some burns on your skin. And so just for caution. I see in the chat there's an individual who asks about some different maintenance strategies, and they said that they have a 2-acre highly erodible area that was accepted for CRP, and they're wondering if there are lower maintenance strategies or grass species which qualify.
Yeah. I guess it depends on how steep, right? But I definitely would add oats with your planting for sure. If it's super steep, maybe you want, more of a sod forming grass. Our natives are bunch forming. It depends though. There's also a fringed brome, which is a native that's sod forming too. But it's a cool season versus a warm season. So you can get some natives. It's good to have sod forming grasses on those really steep slopes. However, we have goat prairies and a lot of bunch grasses with those different species. So maybe having more grasses and not as many not heavily pollinated or flower planting would be a little bit better for some of those steep areas. But having those companion crops in right away, I think are critical. So oats, planting with oats or Canada wild rye or would be good, to add those at heavy rates so that they can kind of hold the soil in place. Over where we are is pretty flat. So I really haven't dealt with that a ton. So if anyone else has, in those steep areas have other ideas too, they could share.
Yeah. I've got one more kind of technical question here about having a site that has some of the fernleaf ragweed and lamb's quarters, and they're asking if this should be mowed before they're seeding. The lamb's quarters is seeding right now.
Probably have they mowed it all? Like I would probably, if this is first or second year, I'd mow it.
Mm-hmm.
And try to mow before they, seed out. But if it's first year, you are mowing a fair bit in that first year, and hopefully you get everything before it seeds out, but you might not, too.
Yeah. And one last question. Somebody had asked that they want to be able to be an advocate for pollinator habitat in prairies. Do you have any resources or suggestions of, how they could be an advocate for this in their community?
Well, I think, just promoting it in your community, maybe establishing one yourself, or if you're in any kind of church or school or other groups, helping to start little pollinator plantings with a group of people and educate them about, it doesn't have to be that big. It can be pretty small, and you can get kits and stuff, and just kind of walk them through the process and really help, kind of put those in the community, and also, help others join. Pheasants Forever has some grants for that as well. And so your local farm bill biologist can connect you with that. And there's a lot of other good organizations who are doing some cool stuff too.
A couple that
But-
I could mention is Wild Ones is a really
Yep.
good organization for just getting started or for community participation. They help people establish the community and individuals, a lot of pollinator gardens, and know a lot about it. In fact, that's kind of where I also learned a lot. And the Xerces Society, am I saying it right?
Yeah.
Xerces. Boy, they really, I mean, I don't think we really have a locally active chapter, but they do provide a lot of education kits for schools and, you know, Girl Scout, Boy Scout groups or whatever that you can get through that organization. And a lot of really good education about pollinators
Yeah.
because, you know, that's the group of
Their jam.
invertebrates
Yeah.
that they're, so that's a great organization too.
Yeah, that's great. Well, thank you all for your suggestions and thanks for sharing your insights and experiences with us. It's been a really enjoyable afternoon, and I can't believe it's already at nearly the top of the hour again. Thank you so much, Julie and Debbie, and thank you to all of those individuals who tuned in today. I am going to take us off screen and bring us back to the full group, and hopefully Chris is able to capture a photo of all of us today. And before we sign off, if you are here and are able to turn on your camera just for a minute or two, it's always wonderful to see everyone's faces and just capture this exciting group. I will let Chris count based on when she's going to take the photo, so you can make sure your eyes are open. Oh, Chris, you're muted.
I can only see black, so maybe someone, I'm not sure what's going on. I'm not seeing,
Oh,
I'm, for some reason, my,
You can
oh, there we go.
select the
There it
meeting
is.
tab.
Now,
Oh, yeah,
now there it is. All right. Okay, let's get more people on the screen here. Oh, there we go. All right. If you want to be in the picture, you can put yourself on. We've still got some people. All right. All right, we've just got one that is still. All right, on your mark, get set, smile, wave.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much. And just a reminder, if you have ideas, if you liked the programming today and have ideas of other things we could plan for in the future for programming, please feel free to put that in the chat yet. We'll capture those before we close out, or send Chris an email. That would be wonderful. Also, just a reminder that we have that listserv group. That is a great place to continue conversations like you were seeing in the chat today. So I'd really encourage you to sign up for that. Tune into our podcast and hear more stories from individuals like Debbie and their experience on their farm. And also make sure to check out for our blog posts, which brings more stories into your inbox. Before we sign off, please make sure to visit our events page and sign up for the remainder of the webinar series. And also, we hope to see you on the farm somewhere soon. Thank you and have a great day.
Thank you.